welcome to Joffiel Whispers. My name is Nairi. Have you had many incidents in your life where things happen that you had anticipated? Like, for instance, you think of a friend and they call on the phone, or you go out for coffee and the friend turns out to be sitting at the next table or on an aeroplane next to you. And those things appear to be coincidences. But what if they're not coincidences? What if we actually have some ability to send out energy into the universe that we pick up from one another? There are many scientists, modern scientists, who believe that actually our thought processes don't even happen inside the brain, that actually all of knowledge, all of sources of energy are outside the body, and each of our brains is like a computer or a radio. We pick up the messages, but they remain from the outside, and our communications are with the outside energies. Who knows what the truth is? But it's happened so often in my life that I certainly feel that there are energies outside of myself that I can relate to, as though they are intelligences, conscious entities that I could call my spirit guides or an angel. It doesn't matter what it's called. But since I was about 3 years old, I've had constant experiences like that in my life, and they're too powerful to be coincidental. There's a delightful interview between Russell Crowe, the Australian actor, and Joe Rogan, the American podcaster, only a few days old, I think, where Russell was relating an experience he and his family had in Rome not so long ago. He decided to take his sons over because they'd never been to Italy for the experience, and he invited his mother to go. Now, she didn't want to go because his father had died recently, and she'd had wonderful times in Italy with his father, and she just felt she would be too sad. But Russell persuaded her finally to come, which she did. And they spent a day in Rome. They went to the Vatican. They went to the Sistine Chapel, and they were invited to come up to one of the small private balconies and observe the city of Rome from there. And when they were there, they heard the Guards band playing music. Now, the Guards band only plays ecclesiastical music. That's why it's there. And yet on this occasion, they definitely heard the Irish song, Danny Boy. Now, what's interesting is this. Russell's mother had said to him towards the end of the day, you know, it's the strangest thing, but I feel as if your father has been with me all day. I feel his presence very intensely. And not had she just said this, apparently, but they hear the song Danny Boy, and it turns out that Danny Boy had been sung at Russell's father's funeral. Now, what are the chances of that happening? That's just an amazing story. I haven't quoted him exactly. I hope what I'm saying is accurate, but you can go to that interview if you're interested in following it up. I think of a quote by Nikola Tesla, and again, I don't know the exact quote, but it was along the lines of, when scientists recognize that everything is energy, including the physical world, everything is created by unseen energies, then science will advance more in the next 10 years than in the whole history of science. Now, that's an interesting thing for him to have said. And in the world at the moment, there are many scientists who believe the same thing, that actually physical matter, even physical matter, is a product of energies out there, of musical energies, of sound and relationships to sound. Now that's a complex issue, and I'm not going to go into it now, but I might do a conversation about that sometime in the future because it's really fascinating. But there are a number of people in the US who have interesting things to say about this, about whether we communicate with people unconsciously because they are coincidental, or because we actually, through our thoughts, create our reality. Now, if you listen to Dr. Joe Dispenza, who is actually just has a degree in science, and he's a chiropractor, so I don't know what level of doctorate he is, but he's been talking about this for many years, along with a man named Bruce Lipton. Bruce is a microbiologist, a cell biologist. He has very interesting things about the way the cell and the brain work. And I don't know if he's a doctor, but Gregg Braden is actually a geologist by training, but he has educated him very well in all things to do with energies, philosophy, psychology, earth matters. He's a very interesting man. And all three of them claim that we create our own reality through our own thoughts. Now, if you think about it, it is possible to consciously create reality through your own thoughts. I knew a musician, a clarinet player many years ago, who'd got to the stage where he didn't bother rehearsing. He would just sit quietly and close his eyes and imagine himself playing his instrument. So he wasn't using up a lot of physical energy, but in his mind, he was playing through the tunes, just in his thoughts. And then he'd go to a concert and he was perfectly fine. He could play it all thoroughly. And it's worth looking into the work of those three people I mentioned. So with regard to that, I thought I would like to share with you an incident that has happened to me. Now, you may and may not find it interesting. Only you can decide that. But you will have noticed that when I do my podcasts, there's a large painting behind me. It's a kind of mandala. Now, although I'm a visual artist, I don't generally do mandalas. This is a particular one. And its meaning in my life has become really interesting recently. Now, I painted it probably 3.5 or 4 years ago in Australia, where I come from. And I'm going to describe to you the formation of the painting and why I think it's tied up with that subject of creating our future just through our thoughts, rather than just letting life happen to you, that you actually actively create your world, even if you're not conscious you're doing it, which is why I would suggest that the best thing you can do is to learn to be conscious of your thoughts and to make sure they are always positive and helpful, and try and consciously let go of negative thinking, because in doing that, it's my belief that you create a negative life. That to have a good life, you need to think positively and understand what you really need in your life and how you want it to be. But here's the story about my mandala. I was given actually an astrology reading by a lovely lady in Geelong in Australia. And as soon as she met me, she claimed that my birthday was not on the day, the official day, but the day after. Now, what's interesting about that for a start is, when I was a small child, the day she claims I was born was in fact the day that my mother believed I was born. And until I was 13 years old, I was on record as having been, or in her mind, as having been born on the 25th of the month. And then she happened to look at my birth certificate one day and realised that officially I was born on the 24th. Now, I met this astrologer and she said, no, I was born on the 25th, and she could not possibly have known that my mother also believed I was born on the 25th. So something odd happened. I suspect that they actually created the wrong date on my birth certificate, that they got it wrong. She also said that Archangel Jophiel was my archangel. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't believe it, but I believe in the spiritual implications of Jophiel, because she is supposed to be the archangel of love and beauty and wisdom and creativity and all those really positive things. So in my mind, I decided that I wanted to adopt Archangel Jophiel as the name of those spiritual energies I feel around me. And I created this mandala, and I'll show you a close-up of it so that you can see it properly. You may find it interesting. I hope you do. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. So when you look up closely, you can see right in the centre, vertically, is a sword. Now, the colour yellow is attributable to Jophiel, yellow and sort of an orangey colour. So and a flaming sword. So we have the sword in the middle, pointing upwards. And then around the edge, you can see a kind of abstract representation of flames all the way around in lovely colours. So I started doing this mandala, and I was doing these lovely orange colours and that pale, beautiful mauve colour around it as a complement to lift the orange and make the whole thing more interesting. I didn't want to just do a whole painting in shades of one colour. Now here's the interesting bit. I happened to be in a wonderful store in Melbourne that supplied various papers, wrapping papers, craft papers, just a whole store of the most wonderful papers. And there, amongst the wrapping paper, was an image based on Egyptian mythology, the mythology of Isis and Osiris, in other words, the Horus myth. And if you don't know what the Horus myth is, it doesn't matter at this point in time, you can always look it up. But it is believed that that myth has permeated the whole of history, including the rise of Christianity, which for some appears to be an adaptation of the Horus myth story, going all the way back to ancient Egypt. Now, it happened that the colours in this wrapping paper were the same colours as in my painting, and I spontaneously bought it, took it back, cut out the images of Isis and Osiris, and you can see them here in the image that I'm showing you, and many of the little pieces of flowers and the lotus flowers and various other things. So it became a bit of a collage. Now, here's the extraordinary thing, and I didn't realise it at the time, but during 2021, at the height of the COVID era, we suddenly, me and my small family, decided to leave Australia and come to Egypt, where I've been residing now for nearly 3 years. We packed up all our worldly goods and put them in a shipping container and left Australia, which is a very strange thing to do. And it wasn't until recently when I pulled this mandala out of storage that I realized that I had created this Egyptian theme in my painting, and here suddenly, unexpectedly, because it happened very spontaneously for a variety of reasons that I won't relate to you now because they're not important, but here I am in Egypt with a theme that I had created in Australia 4 years prior, without even the remotest idea in my mind that I would be coming to live in Egypt. It's not something I never even thought about visiting Egypt. And yet suddenly here I was, having created this extraordinary mandala with Egypt as a theme. That's pretty interesting, I think. And the question in my mind is this: did I, by painting an Egyptian theme on a Christian representation of an archangel, did I create a reality? Did I actually draw in the energies of Egypt, which is why I was guided to come here? Or was it somehow already written in my life path that I would come here, and unconsciously and intuitively I had created that image in Australia before I left? You know, that's a really interesting question, because the implications are huge for all of you. This isn't just my life. Think about this. I'm sure there are so many people who've had similar kinds of situations. I was going to say something else about it. Yes. When I did the painting, I knew that the characters were Isis and Osiris, but the painting began as a homage to Archangel Jophiel. What I didn't know until I did a little bit of research was that the relationship of Isis and Osiris is often related to Christian myths, including the relationship of Jophiel and Archangel Michael. And Archangel Michael, in terms of historically, in terms of mythology, Archangel Michael is protected by Archangel Jophiel when he goes to war against evil. So somehow there is some relationship between the Egyptian mythology and the Christian mythology. Now it could be coincidence, but to me it feels like a whole lot more than that. And I just wanted to share this with you and perhaps get you thinking a little bit about how we do control our reality, but most of the time we are simply not conscious of our thoughts and not conscious of how we are creating our reality, and the potential for us to create a reality that may be more profound and more desirable than that which we have. Maybe not. Maybe you're a person who is so contented with your life and happy with your life. Perhaps it's because your thoughts are positive and they're creating a positive world for you. But for those of you who feel there's something wrong, maybe it's worth looking into your thoughts. We call it consciousness, or I can't think of the term now, where you try to be constantly aware of your thought processes so that you consciously let go of negative thoughts and hold on to positive thoughts. So I hope you found that a little bit interesting. If you're still with me, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Until then, stay well, stay blessed.